Hi, everyone, and welcome again to Strand Explains. I'm Sakshi, and as always, I'm joined by RK. Hi, RK, how are you doing?
Hello. Good, really good today. It's a nice
Yeah,
winter. Well, we're coming off at the end of the winter here in Bangalore, but it's still nice and windy outside. It's good.
yeah, the weather's been really nice. So, today we thought we'd talk about some common worries and misconceptions we've heard as vaccine rollout starts across the world, including here in India. We thought we'd talk about whether we ourselves are going to get vaccinated, what we think, what we've heard, and some of the common worries. So, just to start off, RK, are you planning on getting vaccinated when your turn comes around?
Yeah, I'd love to get vaccinated, but it's certainly for me, it's still not a very straightforward calculus. And so, for instance, I have been fairly, liberal about going out in the last several months. And, in Bangalore, life has resumed, pretty much life resumed probably in June or so. You saw a lot of people at cafes and so
Yeah.
on. Uh, and people just going about their business. And that sort of encouraged all of us to go about our business as well. And I think in the course of the last 6 months, I find it hard to believe. I've also made two visits to Calcutta,
Mhm.
three plane rides to Calcutta and back.
Mhm.
And I just find it hard to believe that I don't have antibodies circulating already in my system.
Yeah.
I probably several times, I've probably been exposed to it a bunch of different times.
Uh-huh.
And so it's not obvious to me that I need the vaccine. And
Mhm.
I've been fortunate that I haven't been infected. But I think I'll get it anyway. And that's just, the vaccine sort of culture in India is pretty strong, and we believe in vaccines. And probably that's some of that is speaking through me as well.
No,
How about
definitely.
you? Do you plan
Yeah,
on?
I definitely plan on getting it.
Yeah.
Like you said, I've actually had to travel a few times as well. We had a family emergency. We had to fly to Dehradun. We had to fly to Jhansi for various reasons. So we actually once we came back, we our whole family got antibody tested because we were pretty sure like at this point we must have been exposed and we weren't. So we were antibody negative, which was quite interesting. Given that we also did two plane rides. But yeah,
Yeah.
we once it comes out, I definitely expect to get it. Like you said, that's probably the culture speaking through as well. I'm very pro-vax, very for the science, and honestly, the minute I am eligible and it's gone to obviously frontline workers and healthcare workers, I would be happy to get it done. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
obviously at the same time, this is coming from someone who spent their not life for the last how many ever years studying science, studying genetics, understanding the science behind it. And I've heard a lot of concerns and very feasible concerns about getting vaccinated. And I thought maybe we could just run through a few of them, RK. Talk about
Yeah.
some of the worries, what the science is, what we're seeing, so on and so forth. So like I said, vaccine rollout started here in India on the weekend of the 15th, 16th of January. The plan is currently to vaccinate 30 crore or 300 million people, of which 1 crore will be healthline workers. Sorry, I'm just going to double, yeah. 1 crore will be health workers, 2 crore will be frontline workers, that's 10 million health workers, 20 million frontline workers. And then the next 27, sorry, crore will be people over the age of 15, people under the age of 50 with comorbidities. However, with these stats, one of the big worries I've heard is what about people who are older? Given that they might be more frail, they might have a higher chance of comorbidities. Are the vaccines safe? Could you maybe talk towards that, RK?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I just want to also step back and say, those are uh, huge numbers, 300 million, 30 crores in
20%
the
of
matter of
India's population.
yeah, they're really a testament to, I think, you know, people talk about ambition, but I think one has no option but to be ambitious, in these kinds of trying times. Hats off, and if we can pull it off, hats off some more. But as far as, is it safe for people who are older? The data, probably worthwhile looking at the data, and especially the AstraZeneca and the Pfizer trials, right? So, for instance, in the AstraZeneca trial, it's true that people over the ages of 55 were about 18, 17, 17 odd percent of the considered 17% or so of the trial. But those are still extremely large numbers if you think about the total numbers in the trial. Similarly, for the Pfizer trial, you have about a 50-50, a 40-60 really breakup between people who are greater than 55 and people who are less than 55. So, it's a healthy number in both cases that have been tested on the vaccine. And that should hopefully help some of the older people out there wondering if they should get the vaccine, maybe think a little less about, the side effects and so on, because it has been tested on older populations in the clinical trials.
Exactly. And again, it's a very valid concern, but the Pfizer trial, like we said, was in over 40,000 people, if I was not mistaken. AstraZeneca also had, I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but just thousands and thousands of people in getting tested. And so it's definitely not the due rigor has been done. So another concern that I've come across, especially as we see these adverse events coming up, is what about adverse events? What about I think in the first 3 to 4 days they saw 400 adverse events within India of the vaccine. So can you maybe talk about that if it's a concern? Yeah.
Yes. So, eh, in any sort of vast rollout of any sort of therapy or vaccine, some percentage of the population are going to have adverse events and reactions. So, for example, uh, so here are examples of adverse reactions to the current set of vaccines. So, in the India rollout, as you mentioned, we've seen some allergic reactions, but
Mm-hmm.
so far there's only been one serious case. That is as of today, the 22nd of January. Um, of course, there was news in Norway about deaths immediately following, the Pfizer vaccine shot in elderly patients.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but these were elderly patients, and they are trying actively to figure out why this might have happened. And the question that they're trying to ask is whether it followed from the vaccine or whether it followed from other causes which had nothing to do with the vaccine. And it is true that, yeah, while we mentioned earlier that the vaccines have been tested on older people, um, I, especially people with comorbidities, and who are extremely frail or weak or have, compromised immune systems and whatnot, probably either will not be considered for the vaccine, or it will be explained, their healthcare person will explain to them that perhaps they're not in their best interest to take the vaccine, or they should probably consider not opting out of the vaccine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And from current research shows that half the people, sorry, my lights have gone, living in the times of work from home, sometimes you have to deal with these things. I do have internet access, but hopefully it'll come back, but it's going to be a little spooky till then. um,
By the way, there were 23,000 participants in the AstraZeneca trial,
there you go.
and about 40,000 participants in the Pfizer trial.
Yeah.
And 18% of 20,000 were over 55 in the AstraZeneca trial, and 42% of about 40,000 in the Pfizer trial were over 55. So those are pretty large numbers. So they have been tested on older patients as well.
Exactly. And just going back to what you said about the Norway, the patients who unfortunately passed away in the Norway trial, half of them, what they saw, half of those deaths were unfortunately due to adverse events that half of the deaths were due to common symptoms. So whether it was fever, nausea, and diarrhea, which are known side effects of these vaccines. So speaking of known side effects, another concern that's coming up is allergic reactions. One of the things I heard was someone saying that they're not going to get vaccinated until there is there is something to deal with the allergic reaction to the vaccine. So could you maybe talk to um, the how allergic reactions work with vaccines and whether that is something to be concerned about?
I think, look, here's the thing. I think the first thing that people need to understand uh, is that there is no compulsion to take the vaccine. So maybe some of these fears, maybe underlying some of these fears is, the notion that perhaps there's a social compulsion to take this vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't, right? So you only take the vaccine if you're comfortable with it. But having said that, so just looking at numbers, right? So the UK rollout, specifically with respect to allergic reactions, uh, of the many thousands that got the jab on the first day of the rollout in the UK, two had allergic reactions and both have recovered well. And that's just an example of perhaps how few may have reactions to either the stuff of the vaccine which is inactive, or the vaccine material itself. um, but as long as after getting the vaccine you're attentive to your own body, and you do see, you get medical attention if there's something the matter, that you think there's something the matter with you, things should be okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, great. I think we can stop there for today, unless there's anything else you wanted to talk about, Akif.
No. Did you try to get in line for the vaccine yet?
Not yet. Again, with I don't fall under any of those check boxes. I'm not over 50, no comorbidities, and I'm not a frontliner health worker. So not yet. I will
Yeah.
probably download the Coben app once it's been released officially. But yeah, I think it's a little while away from me. What about you?
I haven't looked, honestly, but I was inspired by the story you told me of your friend in the UAE,
Mm-hmm.
uh, who was trying to get in line. Tell me about that.
Oh yeah, so I have a friend who's in the UAE currently and who's about to fly out to America for university. And because he's not an American citizen, he said he's 140 millionth in line or something for getting vaccinated in America. But my understanding is the UAE is currently doing a drive to get their citizens and their residents vaccinated. And since he lives there and is a resident, he's legally and he's legally eligible for vaccination. And so he actually called me up and we had a nice conversation about whether to get vaccinated or not. And he eventually made the decision to get vaccinated, given that that vaccine would be the vaccine that the UAE is rolling out, which is either Sinovac or Sinopharm, I'm not sure, is available to him now. And so I think more than anything, that just speaks to getting vaccinated if possible, and if your government is ready and willing and there are doses available. I think it really speaks to how important it is, not only for yourself to try and keep yourself safe, but for people around you. This friend of mine is going to be flying to America. It's a long flight even from Dubai, and if you can protect yourself and those around you, why not? If you know you if you think, if you feel comfortable with it and you don't think you will get any side effects. So yeah, I think it was a really cool conversation to have with him, and I think it is a great thing that he's done. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
It,
no, it's great to hear that there's people who are taking these calls because it may be a good while. I think this is what it reminds me, at least, maybe a good while before people who are not quite as who are fortunate enough not to be at risk, like you and me,
yeah,
probably going to a while before we get it.
yeah, definitely. And so those who can, why not? I'd like to say as long as things are safe, because actually one of our co-workers colleagues was saying that her father just got vaccinated because he works in the army, and so they count as one of the frontline workers. And it brought up an interesting conversation between our teammates about whether or not we'd get it. And even within our own small team of 4 or 5 people, there's a little bit of hesitation, and again, rightly so, in terms of what it'll mean. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how people make these decisions. And like you said,
Yeah.
it's important to remember that it is voluntary at the end of the day, but maybe advisable, at least from me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think,
Yeah, it's no force at all. Yeah.
of course, of course. So yeah, I think we can end there. Thanks as
Yeah.
always, RK. This has been a great conversation. As always, like, share, subscribe, comment down below anything you would like to hear, anything you're curious about, and thanks from us. Bye.